Dawn of the Dark, the First Sith. Chapter 1, The Secret Archives. The Grand Library of the Order of Light was an immense structure of soaring columns and endless rows of ancient tomes, its walls lined with texts that held the collective wisdom and history of millennia. Nestled deep within the cityscape of Coruscant, the library stood as a beacon of knowledge and a sanctuary of peace. Erebus, a young and restless student of the Order, walked its silent halls with a reverence tinged with a growing sense of defiance. Erebus's steps were soundless on the cool stone floor, his deep blue eyes scanning the high shelves. He had always been different from his peers, his mind restless, always pushing against the boundaries of conventional teachings. His masters praised his brilliance, but worried about his impetuous nature and insatiable curiosity about the darker aspects of the Force. Tonight, his quest for forbidden knowledge had brought him to a secluded part of the library that few visited. The air here was thick with dust, and the faint glow from the high windows barely penetrated the gloom. His heart raced as he reached a section cordoned off by a delicate chain. A simple sign hanging from it, restricted access. Ignoring the warning, Erebus slipped under the chain. His fingers traced the spines of the books until they paused on an unassuming volume bound in dark leather. The tome was old, its cover etched with symbols that seemed to shift unsettlingly in the dim light. With a cautious glance over his shoulder, Erebus opened the book. The pages whispered under his touch, revealing writings about the path of shadows, a way of the Force that promised power beyond any the Order taught. As he delved deeper, the text spoke of the alignment of the ancients, a rare celestial event that enhanced one's connection to the Force. It was due to occur soon, a fact that stirred a reckless excitement in Erebus's chest. The book warned of the dangers, of those who had succumbed to the dark side's seductive call, but to Erebus it whispered of possibility. Curiosity leads often to danger, Erebus. The soft, stern voice of Master Solian broke the silence, causing Erebus to snap the book shut. He turned to face his mentor, a man of age-worn dignity and deep kindness in his eyes. "Master," Erebus began, his voice steady despite his surprise, "I seek to understand all aspects of the Force, to protect or to possess." Solian interrupted, stepping into the light, his robes casting long shadows. "The dark side is not something one masters, it masters you." Erebus met Solian's gaze, his own resolve hardening. "I believe I can control it. Even the greatest of us have fallen, Erebus. Do not overestimate your strength, nor underestimate the dark side's allure," Solian advised, his tone imbued with an earnest fear. Erebus considered his words, but the seed of ambition had already been sown. "I understand, Master. I will be cautious," he lied, a part of him shrinking away from the deceit. Solian studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "I trust you will remember your teachings. The path of the light is balance, Erebus. Do not stray too far into the shadows lest you lose your way." With that, Solian turned and left, his figure gradually swallowed by the darkness of the library's vast halls. Erebus looked down at the tome in his hands, the temptation gnawing at him. With a deep, steadying breath, he made his decision. He would go to Dathomir, seek out the alignment, and prove to himself and to Solian that he could harness the dark side of the Force without succumbing to it. As the echoes of Solian's warning lingered in the air, Erebus prepared for a journey that would alter the course of his life forever. He could not know then how far the path would lead him from the light, nor what shadows would rise to meet him in the darkness. The journey to Dathomir was fraught with whispers of the unknown and shadows that seemed to cling to the very hull of Erebus's small craft. As the stars blurred into the streaks of hyperspace, Erebus found his thoughts returning again and again to the dark tome he'd secreted away in his quarters. The pages held promises and warnings in equal measure, a testament to the perilous path he had chosen. Dathomir loomed on the horizon, a world shrouded in mystery and steeped in the dark side of the Force. As his ship descended through the planet's thick, swirling mists, the landscape revealed itself. Towering, thorn-laden trees and vast swamps that emitted an eerie glow. It was a place that seemed untouched by time, existing in perpetual twilight. Erebus secured his ship in a clearing, the sense of isolation palpable. The air was heavy, laden with the power of unbridled nature and untamed magic. He could feel the dark side here, more potent and more seductive than anything he had experienced in the sanitized halls of the Order. Venturing deeper into the forest, Erebus encountered the harsh realities of Dathomir. Predatory creatures watched from the shadows, their eyes glinting with a malevolent intelligence. Erebus used his training to ward them off, but each encounter left him more drained, more aware of his vulnerability. Finally, as the twin moons rose to their zenith, he came upon a large, ancient stone structure, overgrown with vines and dark moss. This was the dwelling of the Nightsisters, a coven of force-sensitive women rumored to practice the oldest and darkest forms of magic. Erebus approached with caution, aware of the many eyes that now fixed upon him from the darkness. A figure emerged from the shadows, her presence formidable. She was clad in robes that seemed woven from the night itself, her face marked with intricate tattoos. This was Mara, the leader of the Nightsisters. "You seek knowledge that many have died trying to obtain." Mara's voice was like a whisper of wind through dead leaves. "Why should we share our secrets with an outsider?" Erebus met her gaze, his resolve clear. "Because I am willing to face death to gain the power to protect what I cherish, and perhaps offer something valuable in return." Mara studied him for a long moment before nodding slowly. "Very well, outsider, but know this. The path of power is fraught with peril, and the dark side is a demanding master. You will be tested." The following days were a blur of grueling trials. Erebus was challenged physically, mentally, and spiritually. He learned to draw on the dark energy that saturated Dathomir, twisting it to his will, shaping it with his desires. Each night, he fell into a restless sleep, his dreams haunted by shadows and screams. But as he grew in power, so too did his understanding of what he might become. Each lesson with Mara revealed the depth of the dark side's complexity and its cost. Erebus felt himself changing, his ambitions growing as much as his abilities. One night, as he sat alone under the alien stars, Erebus pondered his transformation. The power he was gaining was exhilarating, intoxicating, but it was also isolating. He realized he was no longer the man who had left Coruscant. He was becoming something else, something more. This realization was both terrifying and thrilling. Erebus knew he stood at a precipice. The dark side beckoned, and he was ready to step into the abyss. Mara and the Nightsisters. Erebus stood in the center of a stone circle, surrounded by the ancient and gnarled trees of Dathomir. Night had fallen and the forest was alive with the croaks and calls of hidden creatures. Above, the night sky was a tapestry of stars, obscured intermittently by the drifting smoke of the fires that the Nightsisters had lit around the perimeter of the circle. The air was thick with the scent of burning herbs, creating a haze that seemed to blur the line between the physical world and the realm of spirits. Mara approached, her steps silent on the soft earth. She carried a bowl filled with a steaming concoction that smelled of earth and rain. Erebus watched her, noting the power in her every movement, a power that was both alluring and frightening. "Drink," she commanded, offering the bowl to him. Erebus hesitated only a moment before accepting it. The liquid was bitter and thick, coating his throat as he swallowed. Almost immediately, he felt his senses heighten. The world around him became sharper, and the whispers of the forest grew louder, as if he was suddenly privy to a conversation that had been ongoing for centuries. "This is the essence of Dathomir," Mara explained, her voice a low chant that seemed to meld with the sounds of the night. "It will open your mind to the spirits of this place. Listen to them. Learn from them. They will show you the depths of your own power." As the potion took effect, Erebus felt his consciousness expanding. Shadows moved at the edge of his vision, not with malice but with purpose. He turned his focus inward, reaching out to the dark side of the Force more deeply than he ever had before. The experience was transformative. Erebus felt as if he was a conduit for the raw energies of the planet, energies that whispered secrets of ancient powers and long-forgotten truths. He saw visions of past Nightsisters, their lives and their battles, their sacrifices and their triumphs. Each vision taught him something new about the nature of power and the sacrifices required to wield it. Mara watched him throughout the night, her eyes reflecting the flickering firelight. "The path of power is not easy," she said as dawn approached, and Erebus's visions began to fade. "It demands everything from you, but it also offers everything in return. You must decide what you are willing to give and what you are willing to take." Exhausted but enlightened, Erebus nodded. He understood now that the dark side was not just a path to power. It was a journey into the very essence of being. It required him to confront his deepest fears and desires, to embrace them and to control them. Over the next several days, Erebus trained under Mara's watchful eye. She taught him how to harness the dark energies of Dathomir, how to bend them to his will, and how to withstand their corrosive effects. He learned to cast spells that could bend the mind, warp the environment, and even manipulate life forces. But as his mastery grew, so did the darkness within him. He felt it always, a shadow at the edge of his mind, tempting him with promises of even greater power, urging him to abandon all restraint. One evening, as he and Mara walked through the forest, discussing the subtleties of the dark arts, Erebus broached the subject that had been weighing on him. "What is the end of this path?" he asked. "What becomes of those who surrender themselves to the dark side completely?" Mara stopped and turned to face him, her expression inscrutable. "They become legends," she said after a long pause, "or warnings. The choice, Erebus, is always yours." Embrace of the dark. In the heart of the Dathomir night, under the watchful gaze of the twin moons, Erebus stood alone in a clearing, surrounded by the gnarled and whispering trees of the forest. The air was charged with an energy that seemed to pulse with ancient power, a rhythm that echoed the beating of his own heart. He had come to a crucial point in his journey, where the path before him forked sharply, leading deeper into realms of power and darkness he had only begun to comprehend. Tonight, Erebus was to undertake a ritual that marked the final severance from his past life and a full commitment to the path of shadows. Mara had prepared him, warning that this ritual would test him like no other, that it would strip him down to his very essence and force him to confront the darkness within himself. Only then could he truly wield the dark side as a Sith. The ritual began with Erebus kneeling in the center of the circle, his figure bathed in the silver light of the moons. Mara circled him, chanting in the ancient language of the Nightsisters, her voice a haunting melody that seemed to weave through the trees and fog. She carried a bowl filled with a mixture of blood and rare herbs, the scent pungent and metallic under the night sky. As she approached, Mara explained the significance of each component. "Blood for life, herbs for the earth, your spirit for the power," she intoned. "All must be bound together if you are to rise anew." She dipped her fingers into the bowl, then traced arcane symbols across Erebus's forehead and chest. Each symbol burned into his skin, not with pain, but with a rush of power that flooded his senses, overwhelming and intoxicating. The forest around him seemed to fade into darkness, leaving only the stars above visible, as if he were floating in a sea of black. "Embrace the darkness, Erebus," Mara's voice echoed, distant yet clear. "Let it fill you. Let it become you." Erebus closed his eyes, breathing deeply, reaching out with his senses to touch the dark side that swirled around him. It was a maelstrom of fear, anger, and desire, but beneath those, he found something else. Power. Pure and absolute power. As he opened himself to it, he felt as if he were expanding, his consciousness extending beyond the physical realm. He saw visions of the galaxy, of worlds and peoples, empires rising and falling. He felt as if he could control them, shape them to his will. It was exhilarating. When he finally opened his eyes, the world seemed different, sharper, as if he was seeing it for the first time. He rose, feeling a strength in his limbs that was new and formidable. Mara stood before him, a smile playing on her lips. "You have done well," she said, "but remember, power is not the end, but the beginning. What you choose to do with it, that will define you." In the days that followed, Erebus continued his training under Mara's watchful eye, but now there was a new depth to his abilities. He practiced bending the dark energies to his will, learning to cast spells that could cloud minds, summon creatures of the night, and even manipulate the life energies of the plants and animals of Dathomir. But with each new display of power, the darkness within him grew stronger, more insistent. He began to feel a constant hunger for more power, a desire to test his limits and push beyond. He realized he was standing on a precipice, the dark side beckoning him forward. One evening, as he stood looking out over the dark forests, Mara joined him. "The path you walk is lonely, Erebus," she said softly. "Power isolates even as it binds. Remember, the darkness is a part of you, but you must never let it consume you." Erebus nodded, understanding her words but feeling the pull of the dark side like a tide, relentless and inevitable. Gathering shadows, as Erebus stood at the edge of the dark forests of Dathomir, the land seemed to pulse under the light of the setting suns, casting long shadows that reached out like fingers across the rugged landscape. The power he had harnessed coursed through him, a constant thrum of energy that connected him to the dark side, his ambitions now reaching far beyond the confines of this secluded world. Mara had taught him well, but Erebus knew that the time had come to leave Dathomir. He had followers now, a small but dedicated group of acolytes who believed in his vision of a new order, one that embraced the dark side's potential without succumbing to chaos. As they prepared for their departure, Erebus felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders, the leader of a new creed, a pioneer of shadows. Before the journey, Mara took Erebus aside, her eyes searching his. "Remember, the galaxy fears what it does not understand, and it will resist you," she warned. "Your path will be met with opposition, and at times it will be steeped in solitude. Do not let your heart harden in the face of these trials." Erebus nodded, taking her words to heart. But within him, the ambition burned too fiercely to be tempered by fear or doubt. He thanked Mara, and with a last look at the dark forests of Dathomir, he turned towards the stars. The journey across the galaxy was a silent one, Erebus and his followers moving like specters from one system to another. They visited ancient Sith worlds, desolate places where the dark side of the Force lingered like a residue, forgotten by time but ripe with old power. Erebus felt a kinship with these places, and with each visit, his understanding of the dark side deepened. It was on the ancient world of Moribond where Erebus faced his first real challenge. They were met by a faction of dark side zealots who viewed Erebus and his followers as heretics. The confrontation was inevitable. Erebus stood before them, his acolytes arrayed behind him, their lightsabers ready. "Why do you deny us?" Erebus called out to them. "We seek the same truths, bound by the same power." The leader of the zealots, a gaunt figure shrouded in tattered robes, stepped forward. "You seek to control the dark side, to bend it to your will. That is not our way. We surrender to it, let it consume and remake us. You are not one of us." The disagreement escalated quickly, culminating in a fierce skirmish. Erebus found himself not just fighting for his beliefs, but demonstrating the very essence of his teachings: control, power, and vision. The battle was fierce, and when it ended, Erebus and his followers emerged victorious, though not without cost. Several of his followers lay fallen, a stark reminder of the path's brutality. As they left Moribond, Erebus reflected on the encounter. He realized that his journey would be filled with such challenges, that his vision for a new order would be continuously tested. But he also understood that these confrontations were necessary, shaping him and his followers, forging them like steel in the fires of conflict. Upon returning to their ship, Erebus gathered his followers. "We are bound by more than our shared powers. We are bound by a vision of the galaxy reshaped," he declared. "Our path is one of order, not destruction. Remember those who fell today, not as victims, but as bearers of our cause." As they set their course back to the broader galaxy, Erebus knew that the real work was just beginning. The galaxy was vast, and it would resist the change he sought to bring. But he was ready, armed with power, a loyal following, and a resolve as unyielding as the dark side itself.